Welcome to Buzzed and Baffled, the podcast where the wine flows, the stories twist, and the truth is always stranger than fiction. We laugh, we sip, and we dive into tales that leave us buzzing with questions and baffled by reality.
But before we uncork the weirdness, a quick disclaimer. We're not experts, just curious storytellers with glasses in hand. All content within this podcast is our humble opinion. Some content may be dark, disturbing, or downright inappropriate, so listener discretion is advised. And remember, nothing pairs better with a wild story than a good pour, so let's get buzzed and baffled.
We're back.
We are back, and we are on the road.
Yeah, we are, I don't know, on site somewhere?
Yep. Buzzed and Baffled live.
Even though we're at the house, Miss Lisa's ignoring us, and she doesn't want to come play on the pod.
Well, I think she got her fill the first time.
We're not talking about pickleball, so she really has no interest in it.
Well, my story is about a mother and a child, so...
Is it about me and Lisa?
Maybe.
Okay. Well, now we are on episode 27.
27. We're getting there.
We're getting a little long in the tooth.
Yeah. Wow. That's gotta be like a record for podcasting.
Like, who else possibly has 27 episodes?
Probably nobody.
And nobody has the audio functioning as good as we do.
No, we just spent like 40 minutes trying to get this to work.
Again.
Because we have these new mics and they pick up much differently than our old mics, so we've been having a little bit of trouble.
So they're less echoey, but we also found they were much quieter.
Yeah. And I don't want to have to like put my lips on the microphone.
You don't really have to eat the mic.
No. And that's kind of what we had to do. So hopefully this is loud enough, and if it's not, don't complain.
Yeah, we do this for free.
Yeah.
So
it's free entertainment for you.
You want to talk about tonight's wine?
Oh, yes, I do.
She is so excited.
This is a repeat, and
it's so good we had to bring it back.
We had to bring it back. It's the Trevento White Malbec that I've been thinking about since the first time we had it. I don't remember reading this last time. Maybe you read it last time.
I probably did.
3 winds created the ideal land for growing wine and revealed the symbol that has guided us to this day. Discover an epic origin. Discover Trevento. Well-known Malbec, newly styled with aromas of cherry and raspberry and notes of green apple with fresh acidity. You're going to have to hold my microphone while I open this, because since we are on site, we don't have our mic stands, so we're holding them with our hands. And these are very, like,
awkward,
rotund microphones. I
feel like I'm holding a beer can.
Yeah. Oh my god, I'm so weak.
Do you need me to do it with my bad shoulder? No. Oh, there you go. That's the sound I've been waiting for all day. Let's see if it's as good as you remember it being.
I'm sure it is. Mm-hmm.
That's a good one.
Yep, sure is.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to tell me about today?
I have entitled today's episode Decanted Delusions.
Oh.
And tonight, I want to talk about fucking with people's minds.
Oh, like that's something new for you? Like you're doing it just for the pod?
Yeah, like this is a new concept for me and not something I do on a daily basis. So, do you know of any famous psychological experiments?
MK Ultra.
I don't know what that is.
Good, because I'm going to do a pod on it later. So,
well, 2 of the most famous, you may have heard of them. They are the Stanford Prison Experiment.
Yes, I did know about that because we talked about that, I think, way back in like episode 2.
Mm-hmm. And the Milgram Experiment.
I think you told me about that one at some point too.
So both of these experiments took place in labs, so they were controlled environments. The Stanford Prison Experiment explored how situational factors influence people's behavior. Basically, if someone feels they have power to do something over another person, they will abuse the power. And in the Milgram experiment, they attempted to understand why Nazis were willing to commit cruel acts against each other by testing the limits of where just following orders were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember talking about that.
So, but we're not talking about either one of those. This one's fun in a whole different way. So today we're going to be talking about the Rosenhan Experiment.
Not a clue.
So David Rosenhan, wait till you see the sex pot.
Ooh la la.
There's a lot of forehead going on, right?
That's a 5 head. That's not even a 4 head. That's a 5 head. Wow. Go to buzzedandbaffled.net. This one's going up on the wall next to
it's going up next to the mushroom lady.
From the mushrooms.
So David Rosenhan was born in 1929. He earned his doctorate in psychology from Columbia University in 1958. He worked as a law professor and a psychology professor at Stanford from 1971 until he retired in 1998.
Okay.
So this guy, no slouch.
No, he's got quite the educational pedigree.
He is responsible for what we know today about applying psychology to eyewitness testimony, jury selection, and jury deliberation.
Oh, interesting.
So he believed that there were 7 main features of psychological abnormality and stated that if a person exhibits more than one of these characteristics, their behavior is abnormal.
Okay.
I just threw this in here for spice. It doesn't really have anything to do, but I just thought it was interesting.
That is interesting.
I put this in here just for you,
I'm
Kyla.
sure you did, because it's one of the things I'm very interested in.
So suffering was the first one. If the individual experiences personal distress or feelings of not being right within themselves.
Okay.
Maladaptiveness. The behavior is dysfunctional or makes it difficult for the individual to achieve significant life goals, such as forming relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Unconventionality. Conventionality. The behavior is vivid, unusual, or stands out from typical social behaviors. Unpredictability. A loss of control of medical and psychological information, but their other biographical details are reported truthfully. So, like, they lie about stuff, but some of the stuff remains consistent. So the behavior doesn't follow a consistent pattern, or the individual seems to be losing control over their actions. So if you lose emotional control and you're behaving erratically. Irrationality, kind of being incomprehensible. I'm like that a lot. The individual's behavior is difficult for others to understand and makes no logical sense.
Yep. Is that one ringing
That's
like a little close to home?
I was like, ooh, that's a little familiar to me. The cause of observer discomfort. The individual's behavior creates unease or discomfort for those who observe it.
Oh.
So I've hit 2 so far.
And if you have one of these, you're abnormal.
I'm at least up to 2.
Yeah, because as you're reading these, I'm like, yeah, that's happened to me. Like, I could think of something where I was being irrational or something. But
the last one is violation of moral or social standards. The behavior goes against the accepted social norms, cultural values, or moral codes of society.
okay, so he really didn't like hippies.
He did not. So knowing that his focus was the law and psychology, what do you think his experiment was about?
Why you always give me these quizzes? Because I'm always wrong.
That's why I give you the quizzes.
It was probably about criminals.
Swing and a miss. So the Rosenhan Experiment occurred in the 1970s, and it focused on testing the validity of psychiatric diagnoses.
Oh, yeah, I was not even close.
Nope. He came up with the idea for the study while listening to a lecture by a psychiatrist who proposed that psychiatric care should be carefully monitored because psychiatric treatment can be more damaging to patients than helpful if they are too aggressive with it.
Okay. I get where you're coming from.
Mm-hmm. Remember, this is happening right after deinstitutionalization.
Mm-hmm.
And so everyone is starting to move from state hospitals into the community because historically, state hospitals didn't treat people very well.
No.
There's pictures, and these are just the ones I found.
Oh my gosh. You know, I just finished watching Monster, which was the worst season by far.
It was terrible.
Terrible. Awful.
Like, there's one in 1946.
But that first picture, and we'll put it on the website, it's very edgy.
There's a lobotomy.
I don't like that.
Nope.
Ick.
So historically, there had been a myriad of abuses within psychiatric hospitals and asylum up to this point. Like, we now have records of like horrifying abuse that resulted in a lot of hospitals being shut down.
Mm-hmm.
It was during the 1970s that an anti-psychiatry movement started and began to take considerations such as differences in the power dynamic between the patient and the doctor, leading to oppression and subjectivity in psychiatric diagnoses.
Okay, that's fair.
So keep in mind that the first DSM that we used to diagnose people was published in 1952.
I want to get my hands on one of those and just be like, what in the actual hell?
I did go and find like a PDF of one and read it, parts of it, and I was like, what the actual fuck is happening here?
Oh, no.
So the DSM-3 was published in 1974 after this experiment.
Okay.
So when we look at the DSM-2, which is the DSM they would have been using at the time these experiments were happening, how do you think they defined and assessed psychosis?
Well, not very well.
No.
I'm going to say archaic and barbarically.
So the problem with the DSM-2 is that psychosis is not listed as a distinct category, but instead as a symptom as a group of illnesses. Mm-hmm. So it's not like you go and like, oh, this person has psychosis. Which of these illnesses do I need to look at?
Mm-hmm.
We have a narrative of all these illnesses, and you got to figure out which one it is.
So it's kind of backwards on how you do it.
Yep. A disorder was considered psychotic if it led to the impairment that grossly interferes with the capacity to meet ordinary demands of life. And that's a pretty broad statement for psychosis. But this is how the DSM-2 defined it. Unlike later editions, DSM-2 did not have a precise diagnostic criteria for psychosis or specific psychotic disorders like schizophrenia. So they're just kind of winging it.
Mm-hmm.
So with that information, what do you think he did to test?
Well, he probably set his own narrative out on his patients.
It's so much better.
Okay. Just say it. Because you're looking at me, you're like, girl, you're not even close, but I'm just going to let you go with it.
The design of this experiment, there were 7 participants who he labeled as pseudo-patients. The pseudo-patient consisted of a graduate student in his late 20s, 3 psychologists, who's their PhD levels, a pediatrician, a psychiatrist, a painter, and a housewife. Each pseudo-patient had 0 history of mental illness prior to the experiment, and each pseudo-patient was given a new identity and career to prevent the hospitals from knowing the depth of their knowledge.
Okay.
Each pseudo-patient presented at an assigned psychiatric institution for voluntary admission and feigned having hallucinations in order to be accepted for treatment.
Okay.
To ensure the control within the experiment, each pseudo-patient gave the same description of symptoms, which was hearing a voice of the same sex that they were. The voice was unclear, but only seemed to say the words empty, hollow, or thud.
Okay.
So why do you think they chose to give these patients these specific set of symptoms?
I thought you were reaching for the horn, like you knew I was already going to be wrong.
I'm eating a cracker.
She was reaching for a cracker. Well, because they're pretty broad, and it's something that would be across a lot of different diagnoses.
Yeah, so they were vague enough to form some sort of existential crisis, and it was research-based. There was no literature at the time that referenced these specific psychotic symptoms.
Okay.
It was important to note that no other psychotic symptoms were named. After the review of one of the patient's medical record, it was noted they claimed to have problems with sleep, being unable to hold a job, being sensitive to radio signals, having suicidal thoughts, and presented as grimacing. So these are things the patients weren't doing, but the people in the hospital stated they were. All of the pseudo patients' records document them as being friendly and cooperative. So the 7 patients were hospitalized across different psychiatric hospitals in the United States. The sample size, and this kind of varied when I was looking. Some said like 7 to 10, some said 12 hospitals. So I'm not sure exactly how many. But they included public hospitals in rural areas, urban hospitals run by universities, so these were teaching hospitals, and one private fancy pants hospital.
Okay, so they have a variety of settings.
Each person was admitted due to identical complaints of psychosis, but would act completely normal after admission, showing no signs of visual or auditory hallucinations.
So they Nelly Bly'd it.
Yes. The hospitals were not aware that the experiment was running. During the experiment, each subject was diagnosed within their assigned institution with a psychotic disorder and was treated with antipsychotic medications, which were new at the time. They had just developed these. The disorders they were diagnosed with varied from schizophrenia, mostly from the public hospitals, and one patient from the private hospital was diagnosed as manic depressive psychosis. So they gave that person a better diagnosis that would have a better label. The average stay for all the patients, how many days do you think that they had to stay in the hospital? Knowing that they were admitted but were showing no symptoms.
2 weeks.
Yeah, about that, 19 days. But the range was from 77 days to 52 days.
Ooh.
Yeah. During the stay, the pseudo patients would take extensive notes documenting the staff and other patients' behavior. None of the patients were identified as malingering by the staff, yet in the first 3 hospitalizations within the study, 35 of the 118 other patients expressed suspicion that the pseudo patients did not have mental illness.
Well, I mean, if I was in a hospital setting and I saw someone like another patient in the corner, like scanning and taking notes, I might think something's up.
Some of the other patients in the hospital suggested that the pseudo patients were researchers or journalists investigating the hospital. And as you can imagine, this fell on deaf ears.
Oh, yeah.
When looking at the difference between the patient's observations and the staff's observations, we can see that the staff documented their observation through the lens of a mental disorder that the patient was diagnosed with. The chart of one patient had a documentation that their habit of writing in their notebook was pathological.
Oh.
Now, in order to end the experiment, each pseudo patient had to get the hospital to release them on their own.
Oh, no.
No one came to check them out or intervene unless it became apparent that the hospital would not release them, in which case a lawyer was on retainer to assist with obtaining discharge orders.
Ooh, so Rosenhan was like, "You're on your own, pal."
This was like a real sketchy experiment. Yeah. But it gets better. As we can see, the treatment days varied vastly for each pseudo patient. Each pseudo patient reported that they were not offered release until they first agreed with the psychiatrist that they were mentally ill and agreed to taking antipsychotic medications. The patients did not actually take the medications. Instead, they flushed them down the toilets, and the staff never caught them flushing them down the toilets.
That's real crack staff that they have.
People a lot of great things happening
taking
here.
Notes and flushing their meds.
After this experiment, one teaching and one research hospital made the claim that similar errors would not be made at their hospital.
Oh.
Rosenhan agreed to replicate the experiment, agreeing that during a 3-month period, one or more pseudo-patients would attempt to gain access to their hospitals via admission by malingering symptoms.
I do like that he was like, oh, no, we're going to do this.
So what do you think the results of the second experiment were?
The same as the first. They couldn't tell.
It's so much better. After a 3-month period, the hospital reported 41 imposters identified and an additional 42 suspected. The reality was that Rosenhan sent 0 pseudo-patients to this new hospital, and all the patients were just regular psychiatric patients.
That's awesome. He was like, yeah, I told you guys you weren't going to beat this.
Now, there is some question about the validity of the experiment. So first, research methods, a sample size of 7 is very, very small. Yeah. There was also concerns raised later that there may have been an actual sample size of 2, Rosenhan himself and 1 graduate student, and that the other patients that had been invented by Rosenhan, but no one was ever able to prove this. When we look at the impact of this experiment, it led to changes in the diagnostic manual between the second and the third version, with the intent to lead to more reliable diagnostic practices.
Well, I would hope so.
A checklist approach was adopted in which symptoms had a categorical approach to make it easier to assess symptomology. So you didn't have to read a book as a narrative and try to pick out what you needed to do.
Yeah, you had more like an algorithm. Like, it's going to say, okay, if this, then go down here.
Well, because if we look at algorithms, garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah. Sounds like they had a beautiful flow chart, and I love a good flow chart. I make them at work all the time.
She loves
and
flow charts.
Force my employees to use them.
And Excel spreadsheets.
Yeah, they're almost like a family tree.
She just nerds out big time. But now I'm going to make you learn about the DSM.
Oh, learning.
And the good news is that David isn't here to correct me with all of his vast clinical knowledge.
He's not even skulking down in the corner of the basement. He's on the other side of town.
He can't even stop me.
He's going to just appear here. He's just going to teleport in and be like, who's talking about the DSM?
If I say the Michigan Mental Health Code 2 more times, he will show up. So when we look at the DSM-2, it was published in 1968. In order to assess symptoms, you had to look for the definition of terms, and psychosis was in Section 3, Part 2, organic brain disorders.
Oh, that doesn't belong there.
Psychosis is identified as an impairment of the brain tissue function and presents with the following symptoms: impairments of orientation, impairment of memory, impairment of all intellectual functions such as comprehension, calculations, knowledge, learning, etc., impairment in judgment, and lability and shallowness of an affect. And I'm like, girl, you just described me this morning.
Yeah, that's first of all, psychosis is not, organic brain disease can lead to psychosis, but it's not the other way around.
Psychosis is assessed with a narrative. Patients are described as psychotic when their mental functioning is sufficiently impaired to interfere grossly with their capacity to meet ordinary demands of life. The impairment may result from a serious distortion in their capacity to recognize reality. Hallucinations and delusions, for example, may distort their perceptions. Alterations of mood may be so profound that the patient's capacity to respond appropriately is grossly impaired. And this is vague. Bias can come into play here and really skew.
Yeah, there's a lot more than just a little wiggle room on a diagnosis there. You could shoehorn anybody into that narrative.
So the deficits in perception, language, and memory may be so severe that the patient's capacity for mental grasp of his situation is effectively lost. So like me after 2 bottles of wine.
Yeah. Or, someone with, developmental
disability
would.
Or if I have a delirium because I just had surgery.
Or, you have an infection and a fever.
Like a good old UTI did me in. Time for some antipsychotics. Some confusion result from the different meaning which have become attached to the word psychosis. The disorders that can be diagnosed include psychosis due to medical conditions, as well as disorders we know, including schizophrenia, major affective disorder, manic depressive illness, paranoia, and other psychoses. And this is like taken right from the DSM-2, copy and pasted. When we look at the DSM-3, we see a shift where there are specific symptoms that are assigned to specific disorders.
Okay.
So it's like a checklist. Like you have to meet like 3 of 5 in order to have this diagnosis.
It's a number problem. It's not a word problem.
Yes, most definitely. And so now we have schizophrenia, schizophreniform disorder, schizoaffective disorder, brief reactive psychosis, and an atypical psychosis. And we don't even have all of these now. These are very different now. And in the new edition, there was a focus on classification and differentiation of symptoms that was not present in the DSM-2. For example, if someone had delusions or hallucinations, but they were not considered bizarre, like such as having the belief that the president is listening through the television.
So, So you can have them, but as long as they're not weird, it's okay.
No, you get a different diagnosis.
Okay, so if they're weird, it's one thing, and if they're not weird, it's another thing.
So if I have a delusion that someone's following me, well, that's not necessarily weird because, people follow you on the street, but you think they're out to hurt you. Yeah. If I believe the president's listening to me through the television, well, that's weird. So they were still working on it.
Still some fine tuning left to do.
Yeah. So, like, if you had a weird belief as a hallucination or delusion, you would have schizophrenia. But back then, you would have an atypical psychosis if it was like a delusion or hallucination, but not a weird one. And I don't know who gets to decide weird and not weird. I'm thinking that's probably why in later editions, cultural values started to be introduced that we need to add into our assessments. The updates were intended to shift away from a psychoanalytic consensus-based system to an empirical descriptive one so that there was consistency across all practitioners. So if one person says psychosis, the next one should also agree and see that it's psychosis. There have been several updates since the DSM-3, and we are now currently using the DSM-5 TR, which is an updated version of the DSM-5. And the biggest change included moving from a categorical organization to a dimensional organization. So looking at conditions that have shared symptoms with varying severity within the group, and an update in the diagnostic codes that reflect the gained research knowledge. So like each time they updated it usually takes about 10 years between each one, but they try to say, okay, what have we learned in research? I mean, probably right now, not learning a whole lot in research because no one's doing research.
Nobody's got any money.
Nope. But, the idea is, okay, we do better than we did the last time. So what are your thoughts on this experiment and what it uncovered and the developments that it led to?
I have thoughts, but I want to back up just a couple of lines. What does TR stand for with DSM? Do you know? Okay, that's okay.
Not off the top of my head.
Okay, because I heard a while back you and David talking about because I know there's the DSM-5 and then he said TR and I'm like, I don't know what that means. She's going to
hold my mic, I'll Google it.
Meanwhile, so when you started this, I thought this guy was going to be a villain.
I surprised you.
Yeah.
Like, I have a story that's not terrible for once.
I thought he was going to be the running experiments on his patients instead of
that would be more my
instead of kind of exposing the lack of continuity between institutions.
Text revision.
Oh, that's so lame.
Yep.
Why didn't they just call it like 0.2?
Well, because then you'd be on the DSM 5.2.
What's better than text revision?
I don't make the rules, man.
You don't write the DSM?
No, I just use it.
You're just the subject?
Yes. I am the subject and the user.
It's your autobiography?
Yes. If you want to know how my day went, just open a page and pick.
It's a random page. No, that's really interesting. Like I said, I thought he was going to be bad. And I'm very surprised that you picked something where a person wasn't bad because I don't think you've done that.
I know. I mean, don't worry. I'm going to get back to my tried and true next.
I mean, and he may not have been great if he falsified some of his experiment outcome, if there was, but.
Well, I mean, I'm thinking, like, you worked at Stanford.
Yeah.
Like, were you falsifying your clinical records for this experiment?
Yeah. What would he have to gain?
He was trying to improve diagnosis for patient outcomes.
Mm-hmm. And it's not like, he had 7 pseudo patients, but he lied and said he had 200. I mean, it's a difference of 5, possibly.
Either way, he proved that the hospitals were fucking it up.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you had someone with no mental illness, and just because they said one thing, he refused to acknowledge that maybe they don't have it at all.
It's almost like they weren't listening to their patients.
Mm-hmm. It's almost like maybe they had really terrible bedside manner.
Maybe. That could be. They probably also hosed them down and doused them with lice powder.
Well, I mean, it was the 70s, so I'm sure they did. Yeah. I mean, that's what they did in the Stanford prison experiments.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like fortunately nobody got an involuntary lobotomy, though, so that's probably a win.
No.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Also, that guy's such a babe. I can't stop looking at him.
Maybe when we go to Vegas, if you want to get a tattoo, it can be of him.
Oh my gosh, yes. That's exactly what I'm going to do. Bring this photo. He's got a pipe. Oh my gosh, you guys, you just got to go to the website.
He's so dreamy. I'll just have to see if I can find a color print, and I'll order it, and we can hang it on the wall.
Get an Andy Warhol one where it's multiple.
I'm sure I can make one of those.
Probably just put it into Canva.
Yeah, I'll just put it into Canva and make it. I have a lot of editing apps. I am the social media manager. So I believe in me.
Yeah, I believe in you too. I have no doubt that at some point there's be some fancy ass canvas print being delivered to my house. It's in a gold frame.
Post haste.
Yeah. That's fascinating. I had no idea that happened. And obviously I'm not in your world. I know what the DSM is, but it's really interesting that it was the impetus for change for an entire, basically an overhaul of the entire
they're like, oh
manual.
Shit, we got caught. We have egg on our face. We need to fix this. Yeah. But I am glad that even though they didn't just sweep it under the rug, they were like, oh, so we actually need to fix this, and we're going to.
Yeah, that's also good on them for being whoopsie doodles.
Especially when the second hospital was like, we found 42 people. He's like, no, you didn't, because I didn't send anybody.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's a gotcha. Well, cool. See how uplifting it is when you don't do a murder?
Well, the next one's not technically a murder.
Technically?
Well, it's about cannibalism.
Well, I mean, is it in the air? Because I only like flying meat, so...
I don't remember if there's flying meat, but this is the one where you got to do your genealogy tree.
Oh, okay. Yep, got it.
Yep. Kyla went bonkers on this. I did the genealogy tree, and I just did grandparents back 6 generations. She did aunts and uncles and cousins. It was so big, I had to take a screenshot and cut it down to just put it on the website.
When I got to my 100th person, the free website I was using was you can't add anymore. And I said, well, I have 200 more people to add. So I paid $3.95 to get 90 days access to it. Because I couldn't stop.
I'm also going to do my family as a pod. And then I'm going to let her do our family tree and see how close she gets. And I told her, you're not allowed to cheat and look at the one I have online.
I won't. I don't cheat. You throw rocks at my head if I do.
I do. I will 100% throw rocks at your head. Well, I forgot our exit saying.
Yeah, because we're out of the pod room.
I can't read it off the wall.
Hold on. I had it in my head. To the next pour, the next plot twist.